Hey, I got a lobbyist. Cody Hand. Have you ever wondered who lobbies for stuff? The guy coming up on today's show, Cody Hand, today, live and live with myself, Keith Bilous, and a bunch of echoes here coming out of my ears. And one more thing, I got something on my mind. I'm going to share it in about a minute.
Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab.
All right.
Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab.
All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching. Because I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going.
How did you go viral on TikTok? You were on America's Got Talent. How much do you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid.
Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep. You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? What you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real. We brought you in with some Marley. I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing.
I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2.
I've built an AI myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if all they're going to do is hurt humanity? Does the world need
Yeah, there I am. Feeling jacked up today on a Wednesday. It's supposed to be Weston Recovery Day. No R's, I got a W. Cody Hand joining me today to talk about some lobbying, but I got a few things on my mind that I got to get off my chest. Yep, and if you've tuned into my show before, you might just want to tune out. Or if you haven't tuned into my show before, you might want to stick around. True story. All right, coming up, lobbying. This makes this mother curious. I've always wondered who lobbies. I've always wondered how things happen. I've always wondered why things happen. I've always wondered why governments make certain decisions. I wonder why politicians do certain things. I know why. Oh, I fucking know why. Because the guy coming up on the show, yep, had a big, I'm suspecting has a big, oh, every pun intended, a big hand in those decisions. Cody Hand is coming up, the lobbyist. I met Cody about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, while we were chatting. I'm like, so what do you do, Cody? I'm a lobbyist. I'm like, oh. So who wakes up wanting to be a lobbyist? Do you compromise your values when you're a lobbyist? You just don't know what you're lobbying for, who you're lobbying against. Hey, kids, yeah, we're lobbying for no cereal this weekend. Next week, we're lobbying for the legalization of cannabis. Next week, we're lobbying for this. You're just switching hats every day and every week. I wonder. Coming up today, Cody, and some lobbying, but I got to get a couple things off my chest. I feel like I have to. And you know what? Hell, I created this platform to do just that. I could have blogged, but then I realized it wasn't 1980. No, was it 2000? No. So I thought about blogging, but then I don't want to write. Then I thought about doing a podcast, Cody Where I Stand On podcast. So I did a live show instead. Here's what I have to say today before I just get this monologue off my chest before I welcome Cody into the lab. Could you imagine if we all just were the same? Oh, what's coming up here? Yeah, there we go. Could you imagine if we were all the same? Could you imagine if we all just did the same thing? Could you imagine if all music sounded the same? Could you imagine if every book was the same? Could you imagine if every movie was the same? Could you just imagine that? I'll tell you why this is on my mind today. Because I feel like everywhere I'm looking these days, everybody's just telling me to do the same. Post your content this way, post your content that way, do your content this way, make it this way, make it that way. You know what? Fuck that. Actually, no, honest to God, could you imagine if Drake decided to sound like everybody else, or Taylor Swift said, no, I'm just going to sound like everybody else? Could we imagine if that happened? Or if Madonna or any artist in the planet said, nope, I am going to make the same music as the rest of the world, and that's what you're going to listen to. No, I'm going to ask you, nation, whether you want to be a follower or you want to be a leader. I know what I want to be. Ask yourself that question. While you might take tips and tricks from everybody else, don't be like everybody else. Don't try to be like everybody else, because all you're being then is just a follower. You're just perpetuating what everything else is happening. Man, so many people in my ears saying, do this, do that, do this, do that, be like this, be like that. Really? No, I'm doing it my way. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to set it my way. I'm going to walk my way. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'll share them with you, but I'm not going to be like everyone else. Nope, not going to do it. And I'm going to be honest with you, nation. I feel like I've been pulled in the directions lately by just, I don't know, what's around me. I'm like, nah, hell with it. I went for a walk today and I had to get some things off my chest, so I did, into my good old auditorate eye. And then I sat back and reflected upon that conversation this morning. I was like, no, I'm going to rant about it, get it off my chest. Tell nation how I feel. And how I feel is this: go be the blue fish in a pond of silverfish. Listen, observe, but be your own thing. Make your own sound. Make your own sound. Create your own art. That's it, Cody Hand. Create your own art. Be your own person.
Can
That's
I be a
right.
red fish?
You can be a red. Oh, you want to be the red fish, not the blue fish, Mr. American.
Actually, I'm good with silverfish, but as long as it's not a sea full of silver.
That's it. Cody Hand, listen, thanks for being patient while I got that off my chest.
You know what? Part of what we do as lobbyists is let people get stuff off their chests.
I figured that I would have permission and I would have your grace for me to allow that to get off my chest, because that's what you do for a living, or did for a living, which was being a lobbyist. And when you told me that a couple weeks back, just in passing, when you joined us on Mornings in the Lab, I was like, man, that, because I'm a curious soul, I needed to sit down with you for longer than 5 minutes and talk about lobbying. Because Cody, before I was walking into the lab today, I have a Bible worth of questions. And I had some fun with it during the monologue. But first, before we get into that, who's Cody Hand? Where's Cody Hand residing? Let's just warm up nation to why they're going to want to love and pay attention to what Cody has to say before they get pissed off at, oh, so he's the lobbying guy that does all this shit. I've been getting to know you a little bit in the community. Tell nation who Cody Hand is.
Thanks, Keith. Cody Hand is first and foremost, a dad and a husband. And I live in North Carolina, right outside of Raleigh, in the best city in probably America, Cary, North Carolina.
Nice.
And have 2 daughters. They're amazing kids. Started life as a lawyer and went into politics for a little while, and then launched after that into lobbying, and did that for a really long time, as well as being fractional in-house counsel. And about 2 years ago, launched my own firm that I do a lot of stuff. Lobbying is just one of them, and lawyering is just one of them. A couple of weeks ago, you had me on to talk about the Speakers Collaborative, which is my new venture. But that's who Cody is. I'm just a normal guy. I put my tailor-made custom lobbyist suit on one leg at a time, like everybody else.
That's fun. Born, raised, and bred North Carolina guy?
Actually, no, I grew up in New Mexico. I grew up in the desert of New Mexico and got out of there as fast as I could. All disrespect to the place I grew up.
Intentionally chosen words there as well, Cody. So when you moved, was it because of school, or were you moving, was life moving? Is that why you moved? And then what took you calling to law?
I fell in love with a girl and married her and moved here, and we're still married thanks to her patience and grace.
Nice.
And I fell in love with the law. I was in undergrad working on international business and took a job in Belgium. And I was in Belgium, got a call from my mom who said, you got into law school. And I honestly don't remember applying to law school, but I thought, why not? Let's go to law school.
Really?
That's right. Yeah. Went in to be a sports and entertainment lawyer and have yet to practice sports or entertainment law. So
what kind of law did you, what did you pass the bar with?
It's just, you pass the bar with a general law degree.
Okay.
I specialized, it was right after campaign finance reform here in the States in early 2000. And I really got in on the front end of that and quickly became an expert advisor on campaign finance reform, which is how I got into politics and how I got into lobbying.
Oh, interesting. So that was that was the seed of it then.
Yeah.
And so I'm a fan of getting behind and even further behind the moment. How did you arrive at that? Was Was that some curious fetish yours you were curious about? Or like what made you curious about that piece of politics?
Interned with a member of Congress in law school. Her
Mhm.
district office was near the law school, so I interned there. Um, Fantastic experience. Got in with her campaign at the same time, thanks to John McCain, who, by the way, I love.
Yeah.
He passed McCain-Feingold, and people quickly started saying, "What do we do?" And that's when I decided I'm going to study this law and figure out what to tell them. And I just kept going, Keith, and honestly find myself here today with a really weird path to how I got here.
That's really interesting to me. Cody, a friend of mine years past said that I said, Keith, practicing law is essentially theater, acting. It's
It,
it's
yeah.
it's using words to massage something forward of interest to you. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he very much articulated as it's theater.
One of my favorite law school professors, I had a couple, described it day one of the practice of law is ritualized warfare,
Interesting. Ritualized warfare.
which is about the same as theater, right?
Yes.
You're putting on a show. If you've ever been to a reenactment,
Yes.
not the same.
Yeah, yeah. And what is it? Why does law go into theatrics and the showmanship of it, Cody? Is that part of how we as humans need to get our message across? Let's face it, like the theatrics of law and putting the wig on and the robe and that the what's the word I'm looking for? The legacy, the reason we've done it like that. That has the etiquette that's existed forever. Why is that, Cody?
I don't know the full history, Keith. I know it goes back to the English courts and the common law
Yes.
and
Yeah.
what you had to wear to the court. And we did that in America for a very long time. I will say that modern theatrics and your modern expectation is probably a lot more based on what you've seen on TV,
Mhm.
because most of us don't go to court. Most of us are your neighbor. We're
Yes.
very, very down to earth, humble people. We just are lawyers at the same time. You don't really see, even in a trial, even in a courtroom setting, you don't see the theatrics that you would see on Perry Mason or
No. No.
Boston Legal or anything like that. We don't really do that. It's just the perception of that's how we operate. There are still requirements. We do still have to wear suits and ties when we go to court, when we go to the members of Congress and the General Assembly. We do still have to wear different clothes to differentiate ourselves. Many European countries still require their lawyers to wear black robes and wigs.
Yes. Well, here in Canada too, Cody, like just up the road here, that's still the case. So I'm curious, a very serious question. Who says you have to wear a suit and tie to court? Is it the judge that says, "Hey, Cody, you're in my court. Where's your suit and tie?"
Yeah, it's not written anywhere, but if
Yeah.
I've been in court before where somebody has walked in without the proper attire, and the judge made sure that they were aware that they were poorly dressed.
Is that right?
That's right.
Is that ego or is that etiquette? Is that history? Is that respect?
I think it's all of the above except for ego.
Interesting.
I don't think it's ego. I think it's history. It's
Mhm.
respect. It is a regard for the fact that we are one of the professions that we consider ourselves the safeguards, at least in the States, the safeguards of the Constitution.
Yeah.
And I have an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. I take that seriously.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I want to make sure that I dress the part and
Oh,
that I stand out amongst anyone else because I take that role seriously.
this is fascinating to me, Cody. And I suspect, I don't know if you thought we were going here, neither did I, but like law in many ways is under attack. Law is
Yeah.
under attack in the United States. It's under attack in the world. Let's point that comment into the US right now. We have really two fronts, right? The Constitution's under attack just for political reasons in the United States over the last number of years. AI is commoditizing words, commoditizing knowledge, commoditizing the way that we're accessing and using knowledge. Like law might be one of the first disciplines legitimately attacked, taken down by AI. I'm curious your POV on AI, how your firm has embraced it, how you're embracing it, what you're seeing when you look out 24, 36 months. Cody, let's talk about the state of law in the United States right now.
I do worry that AI is going to take it of we're getting rid of the ability to maneuver through laws with a scalpel, to where I could make a legal argument for my client right now in person that you might never think about. And AI is not anything more right now. It could change than an app.
Cody, you're
The
breaking.
way that,
Hold on. Can you go back there? You broke up there as you were making that statement, and I wanted to make sure we caught that.
yeah, good. No, so AI is an aggregator, right? It doesn't right now think on its own. It compiles all its knowledge from everywhere else.
Yes.
The challenge with the law is this case is completely different. Case A is different than case B, and I need to be able to find that one little nuance between the two that would differentiate it from my client. You can't do that with AI. Not yet. I worry though that as we continue to rely on and increasingly rely on AI, the challenge is you're going to lose that ability to critically think about those nuances to the level that you need to. Now, as a practitioner, I do use AI for a couple of things. One, I use it when I write blog posts. I use it when I write opinion pieces. I use it for introduction letters. I use it to give me ideas of content for what I produce to bring attention to my practice. I will never use it for something on behalf of my clients. So you're never going to get a letter from Cody Hand as a client that's AI generated. I'm never going to file anything in court that's AI generated because my clients are paying me for my brain. I will use AI to make it more efficient so that I can then use my brain more for my client as opposed to producing general office stuff. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. This is fascinating to me. So let me challenge you a little bit, Cody, in a positive way. If I'm paying you to be my lawyer,
Mhm.
I want you to have the best tools in the drawer. I want you using AI to make your brain smarter. I want you bringing the best to the table. So as AI moves to AGI, I don't want you saying to me, Keith, I'm not using it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go somewhere else because that guy is. So I'm not sure if I fully agree with the stance on, I want to know. I'll be really honest with you. If I was hiring you, I want to know, yeah, Keith, I'm an expert in using large language models. Oh yeah, why is that, Cody? Because I'm able to go and look at history, look at precedent, look at words, massaging words to build an argument and create a case.
Right. That's right.
I want you using the greatest tools at your disposal to defend me.
And I think what I would say to that, Keith, is I agree. And I use AI now a lot in my firm. It's just that part of the interaction between myself and my clients,
Yes.
myself and the court, myself and other counsel. I'm never going to use AI. I'm never going to present myself. Does that make sense?
And listen, I was as much playing with you there because I understand the sensitivity in your business as well.
Right.
Because you're all not fools. You're all not fools. And what I mean by that is, excuse me, nation, on the next show, lawyers are not fools.
Not always.
Even though you all know how I really feel. No, I'm joking. No, but my point is, though, is that you can easily see you can easily see how a lawyer agent, Cody Hand, the lawyer agent, not Cody Hand, the human, but Cody Hand, the lawyer agent, the AI integrated agent, communicating with Keith Bilous, the lawyer agent, the AI agent, and not effectively in the future, not needing the human in the human. Because that is, I hate to say it, the future. So I can see in many ways why there's a reluctance, why there is a walk instead of a jog, let alone a run towards embracing some of the tools. Because before you know it, you're like, okay, well, what the hell do I need it for? It's true. Let's be frank about it. Let's not pretend what the truth is in many ways too. Because you're right. Clients are paying you for your time, your human time. The demographic you're largely serving is that. But I'm telling you, my kids, your kids, at some point in the future are going, Dad, you're just dad with the human knowledge. Be honest. Our kids in the future are saying, where's the hybrid human with the exceptional knowledge to help defend me?
Yeah.
That's why law is fascinating to me, and how AI is disrupting this week's announcements. You probably saw what ChatGPT announced, and I'm going to weave that little bot into my show here, and I'm going to have it here in the morning show where it's going to become part of the show, because I don't know why I wouldn't.
I agree. Yeah. We've got to make sure that we ethically adapt.
There's the key word, isn't it, Cody?
Yep. We have to ethically adapt to changing technologies. Look, lawyers are usually 10 years behind.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't use spell check while you all were making sure Grammarly was on top of things. We manually typed things. I get it. I think the comfort you should have in that is we're slow to adopt new technologies because we want to make sure that we are ethically adopting those technologies.
I wonder, though, Cody, if this time in the history of humanity, we might need lawyers to be adopting the technology quicker than later this time.
Probably. But let me remind you, we have regulators.
Yes.
We have people making the rules for us.
And I think we're seeing that happen. And I think we're seeing that challenge happen right now globally. And let's keep the light shining on the US, where tech is making announcements every single month, moving the needle on affecting society. And regulators are going, oh, we're still dealing with the bill that was filed 36 months ago on this invention. And they're on version 4 already. Sorry, I lost you there. That's part of that.
Yeah, the problem is the regulations keeping up, and I think we're making a really good segue into lobbying.
Yes.
I feel bad for the regulators because they are just getting 2 years ago rules put out for the legislation that was passed when they've got new legislation to look at, and it's hard to keep up.
You're right. So this was the segue to lobbying. So I'm my assumption on how the industry works, and I really want to dig into and unraveling, because I'm very sincere when I say I'm very curious about it, because I've never spoken to it. I've always wondered about it. I was very serious about my jokes in the morning about, and morning, of course, and then even here to the monologue, which is like the values of a human being that's a lobbyist, like how you're not shifting along the way. Because if somebody's paying the bills one week and somebody's paying the bills a different week for a different reason, makes me curious. But let's just stay on topic of where we're at right now. So bills being passed 2 years ago, like the way the process works, somebody wants to pass a bill, but a lobbyist is one who tries to move it forward or tries to stop it. In its simplest terms, Cody?
In its simplest terms, our job is to either help legislation pass or kill it.
So Keith, the politician, says, I want to pass a law for cannabis. I'll tell you why, because I'm just waiting for your damn country to legalize the damn thing, because I've lost millions of dollars in the industry waiting, actually, and I can't get over. Oh my goodness, there's a rant. I will admit how naive I was about that industry, how political that topic is in the United States. I thought by now shit would have been sorted out. I honest to God thought by now it would have been sorted out, but I quickly realized how political the topic is. So it's a good topic to talk about with lobbying, because there's been gazillions of dollars spent on lobbying for cannabis in the US, whether rightly or wrongly. It just doesn't move the needle, Cody.
No, but I think it's because you've got powerful people on both sides. And let me back up just a bit.
Yes.
Most politicians, brilliant people to a T, to a person, most of them don't come up with bills on their own. They either listen to a constituent, and we do a lot of legislation by anecdote. It affected one person, but that person was a big voice. But most often it's because an industry has hired a lobbyist to convince legislators that this needs to happen for their industry. And then you've got another industry against them that hire another lobbyist to advocate. It's basically, going back to our conversation about law, it's basically court. You've got two sides stating their case. It's just this side may have 35 lobbyists, depending on how many industries are represented. And this one may not have 35, but they represent a different faction. So let's get back to the cannabis question that you had. Cannabis, on one side, obviously, you've got the people who want to legalize because they're the growers, the manufacturers, the sellers, the libertarians, the users, the doctors who use it for palliative care. You've got a whole faction over here that does that. On this side, you've got the advocates for drug reform, for addiction, for family values. You've got the religious folks on the
Mhm,
side. You got them on both sides, actually.
mhm.
But it really is dependent upon who your lobbyist is and the data that you have to go and make those cases. And for most lobbyists and most of my clients, when they sign me on to be a lobbyist, I tell them this issue is not going to be past this session. We spend a lot of time building relationships and stating our cases. And much like the cannabis, it's an argument that has been made and built upon for decades.
Yes.
And therefore, you can't look at DC changed the rule this year. How amazing that they got the bright idea to do that. No, that's because somebody talked to them for the past 20 years. And finally, it started to get some headwind. Most states where you now have cannabis legalization, they've been working on that for decades. And it's just now starting to roll that you see one state that did it, and the tax revenue is amazing. But two, the naysayers' data about what could happen if you legalize in that state turned out not to actually be true. And so now you've got states where, for me, if I'm on the issue, I say it's already legal in Colorado and they're not having what those people say we're going to have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's interesting. So it it really is just a process in time that
Mhm.
effectively at some point in the continuum of time, boop, okay, we're now going to legalize it. Somebody within the constituency of time is going to say to the president or however the process works, with all respect, okay, it's time for us to get this to Congress to pass the bill. And at that point, there's enough votes for enough people to agree. It really is just a process of time, isn't it?
Right.
Generational. So you're thinking that there's certain senators and certain people in Congress that are of a certain age and demographic that are like, nah, I don't agree with that. I think it's a sin drug. It's still related to heroin and it's still a stigma drug, even though we have all the science proving it. But their belief as a human being still says no until that human is gone. I'm being very crass and replaced by a younger progressive human who has a different belief, it's just not going to change, Cody Hand.
They may not even be progressive. They may have a new life experience or a family with a new life experience that might have
Right.
changed their mind. I've seen a lot of politicians change their mind on that issue and on many others, and it really it happens when they have a personal experience with it.
I
And
think for me, though, as an investor, Cody, in the industry, I just didn't think, and I'm maybe creating some hyperbole around this just to create some emphasis on the conversation. I just didn't think that the continuum of time in the United States was going to continue to take so long politically, that there was going to be enough people to say, no, nope, nope, no. Doesn't matter that they haven't had no problems in Colorado. No, it doesn't matter. There's been no problems in so many other states or in Canada, our neighbor to the north. It doesn't matter. Nope, we're still going to go arrest the young man in the state of Georgia for carrying a couple grams of cannabis. Really? I probably got a couple grams on the floor over here in my house. Like honest to God, like it's just a bizarre thing to me.
yeah, and it is interesting. There's a statement, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but since I'm my own boss, I'm going to say it anyway. There's a statement that we have in the lobby core that there's nothing a few good retirements and funerals won't fix. But I think that goes back to
I can see that actually.
your statement. There is a generational change, and it's not just cannabis. There's a lot of regulations that we're starting to see fall away, and a lot of those long-standing prohibitions. People
Yes.
are starting to see when you legalize casinos in other
Yes.
states, what in those other states is, yeah, crime is there is an impact to the crime, but it's anywhere you have an addiction. But what is your people are leaving your state with your money and spending it in another state, and that state is taxing the heck out of it and getting the revenue from it. So the people to participate in this activity where it's legal.
Yes.
So I'm not protecting them, am I? if they're leaving, right? Once they leave the state, I can't protect them. So we might as well figure out how to make it legal and safe in our state. There are parameters that you can put around gambling, around cannabis use, around alcohol. We have the alcohol parameters, and we see that by and large they work. We also see that food is addictive,
Well,
but we don't regulate food the way we do other addictive substances.
I'm glad you brought up food, and you're having a little just tech issue there, Cody, with your internet there. I'm not sure what. That's okay. What's shaking, Chris Keach? Thanks for tuning in, man. This is a great conversation. I'm glad you've tuned into it. I'm sure as you're driving through the wonderful, your wonderful state of California, tuning in and curious about what's going on in your back of the woods there, Mister. But Cody, you mentioned food, and there's one food that affects all of us in the world, and I think that many would point to lobbyists as the reason how it's affected society, and that is sugar and its effects on humans, and how over the last, I'll just create a blanket statement, over the last 100 years, sugar is part of our diet, yet we know it's not good, yet we know it's killing humans, yet we know it drives obesity, yet there's these massive lobbying groups over the years that have perpetuated information around sugar. Talk to me about just that. What's the question I'm asking? Let's talk about sugar and lobbying and its effects on humans, and how you as a lobbyist know the rights from the wrongs, and how we all know it all, but yet there's so much money. And I guess what I'm getting at, Cody, it's the same reason why there's so much doubt with Western media altogether, because all you got to do is follow the money. So one could always point at a guy like Cody Hand going, "Oh, Cody, you're just some corrupt human," because, and I'm just using you as a metaphor. Not, hey kids, we all love dad. Cody Hand, the lobbyist, they just wreck society because they're driven by big money companies that want to change the rules. You follow what I'm saying?
I follow it. I know those lobbyists. I'm glad I'm not one of them. And let me say, sugar, yes. Look at corn. Okay. So
Yes.
probably sugar and corn, I would lump in the same situation. And where I would point you to is the fact that those two industries built
Those two
really before
industries,
the healthcare
those
industry
two
caught
industries
on.
built.
And
Those
I
two
froze.
industries built.
Yep.
Go ahead, say that again.
So the industries built their industry. They hired their lobbyists. They got their regulations passed to really build an industry that had to be protected because of the economy.
Oh, I see.
And they did all of this before the healthcare industry caught on with the tactic of we should lobby too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we should present the same arguments on the other side that they're presenting. And by now, Keith, the problem is they've all created this ecosystem where we're largely reliant as an ag industry. We're reliant on corn and sugar.
Yes.
So we have subsidies for both. We buy tons of both. And therefore, I've already invested in it. I've got to ride that horse till it's dead.
Of course.
Right. And at the same time, then you've got the really good organizations who are worried about health and are worried about childhood obesity. They're largely nonprofit, and they have great lobbyists, but they may only have one lobbyist, where sugar probably has 35. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting circles run around me as the do good nonprofit lobbyists by these 35 who they don't only lobby, but these 35 make sure that Big Sugar is cutting campaign checks.
Yeah. Cody is, so by the way, this is fascinating. This is exactly what I was hoping our conversation would be, because you're getting into old Uncle Keith's curiosity brain right now. And I'm looking at the clock going, holy shit, I'm going to run out of time here. So I'm Cody, is lobbying, is it as dirty as I think it is?
It's no dirtier than any other profession.
Okay.
You have,
Sure. Okay.
you have 10%
Yeah.
of lobbyists who are bad actors. You have 10% of lawyers who are bad actors. You have 10% of pastors who are bad actors. You have 10% of doctors who are bad actors.
I'm asking the question, and sorry to interrupt you, but I'm asking the question because the second part to that question is lobbying not just disguised propaganda?
Lobbying, that's a great question. I'm going to say for some it is disguised propaganda. I will acknowledge that. But many of us really see our role as representing organizations who have no voice otherwise. Some of my clients in the past have been nonprofits who I don't get paid millions of dollars from them.
Mm-hmm.
But without me there, unless, let's take an example. When I represented a hospital, I took my role seriously because I stopped bad legislation that would have prohibited a hospital from providing care to anybody else. And the way it was described to me by a legislator is you are standing in between a baby in a NICU and a bad decision from a legislator who wouldn't know otherwise. It's our job to make sure that policymakers understand what their decisions will do to the whole, not just to address that one person they're trying to fix, but what it will do to everybody else. And so I would say 90% of us, Keith, are in that bucket.
Yeah, because Cody, that hospital doesn't have a voice without you, is what you're telling me, right? Like they literally have no voice at the table until they pick up the phone and they say, so I'm imagining the conversation at the hospital. Okay, we have this issue here. Who's representing us? Everybody's looking around going, okay, we don't have anybody. Okay, so can we find a lawyer, basically a lawyer, lobbyist? Okay, great. Let's find Cody Hand. So Cody represents us. Now you become my voice as the hospital at that conversation, right? Like you're my agent, you're my proxy. It's as simple as that. Am I correct?
That's right. And oftentimes you don't even know it's an issue until I call you and tell you this bill has been filed. We need
Oh,
to talk about it, right? So you, the citizen, aren't paying attention to what's going on with policymakers because that's my job. And I often identify those issues. And oftentimes, the reason you hear about bad bills before they pass is because a lobbyist called and said, this bill was just filed. We need to stop it.
oh, really? Interesting. So that the bill gets filed, somebody's flag goes up. Oh, we got to call the lobbyist. So it's like getting a bluebird falling out of the sky for business. Okay, I guess we got some business to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, yeah. Cody, so when we think about lobbying and we think about, like, at its purest form, lobbying is relationship building, getting through to Keith, changing Keith's mind, spending time with Keith at lunch, spending time with Keith at dinner, spending time with Keith at the Kentucky Derby, getting to know Keith, getting to understand Keith, understanding what buttons to push with Keith so that you can convince Keith what you want Keith to do. Did I articulate that right?
Yeah, it's a relationship game. And when people hire me or any other lobbyist, they're not just hiring me to walk in the building that day. They're hiring me because of the relationships that I have built over time.
Yeah,
And
because you got to convince me to change my mind, Cody.
that's right. That's right.
It's as simple as that. Like it's like a lawyer. You have to convince me with your arguments, with the way you are as a human. You got to convince me to drink the Kool-Aid you're serving me.
That's right. And I'm not going to do that if you don't trust me.
Ah, yes. Yeah, of course, of course. Let's talk about values of a lobbyist. Let's talk about you as Cody Hand, the human being. You have a beautiful family. You're a dad. You speak proudly about being a father. I've seen your content. You're a very proud father. Somebody calls you on Friday and says, "Hey, Cody, we want you to lobby for us." It's a nice paycheck. I'm sure the obvious answer, well, Keith, no, the values always come ahead of the paycheck. But does there have to be a conversation in the house though? Because it is a job?
It depends. I'm also not an automatic no. I want to make sure, one, as a lawyer, I have a duty to make sure I don't have any conflicts.
Yes.
So I'll look at my other clients and make sure, back to your point earlier about this week I'm lobbying for this and this week I'm on this one. I'll never be against myself, right?
No, like you're not switching tables. You're not going 1 week and then all of a sudden, a couple years later, after the bill's been passed, the other company calls you and says, "Hey, Cody, you want to represent us over here?" You're not doing that.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But from a values perspective, it is a conversation
I bet.
I have with my wife and my daughters. How would you feel about dad lobbying for the legalization of cannabis?
Yeah.
We have that conversation. How would you feel about dad lobbying for the local YMCA to get $100,000 grant so that they can expand their after school program? I don't have to ask the question on that one. I know the answer is going to be yes, so I just say
Yes.
so it is a values check, and I do want to make sure that I'm known in the industry, that I'm known as a person of value, of integrity. I'm never going to lie. There's no way to build trust if you're known as a flip flopper on the truth, right?
Of course.
And so I'm never going to be that guy. I'm never going to be the guy that tells you one thing on one day and then tells you another on another. In fact, my reputation, at least in North Carolina and with the North Carolina delegation in Congress, is if you want the truth, you should ask Cody because he's going to give it to you regardless.
Interesting. Interesting. I can see how, and this is why I brought us here at this point in the show to values, because I can see how it could be a big conversation with your own mirror, with your family, with yourself, because potentially what you're doing has major impacts on society, on other human beings beyond just Cody's family.
Absolutely.
And I know you don't take that responsibility lightly. So
No.
it's got to be something that, okay, this, whether it's legalization of cannabis or sugar or corn, whatever, capital punishment, whatever, but it's okay. If Dad's standing at the podium making his argument, it could affect a lot of people in this country, rightly or wrongly. You have to believe in it, Cody.
That's right. And people can see through it when you are not bought into the issue.
Yes.
And you're just lobbying. And I'll be honest, Keith, I've turned down really good paying clients because I was not in on their issue.
I believe that. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Because you can see through it, can't you?
Absolutely.
Because you're just selling then. I think at that point, you're just, in some ways, I'll bring the name up, but in some ways, it would remind me of almost like Giuliani. Like, I think there's some things where he's just talking for the sake of talking, and now you're just selling, man. You're just selling. I don't know if you believe in it. Maybe right now at this time of the day, because you haven't slept for 38 hours, you're just lobbying, but you don't actually believe in it. But that's what it would remind me of, a rambling human being. And I'm not trying to cast judgment on Giuliani, but I'm imagining him just rambling, and I'm imagining a lobbyist who is just being footed by the paycheck, just getting on there and rambling and not really caring about the argument that they're making.
That's right. I've seen it. We've all seen it. That's what they make the movies about.
Of course. Cody, I'm a startup. Let's talk the business side of lobbying. I'm a startup. I'm Uber. I'm recognizing that in order for me to be as disruptive as I believe I need to be, am I going and asking for forgiveness instead of permission? Or am I going and asking for permission instead of forgiveness? Where am I in this whole cycle hiring the lobbyist? Do you follow me?
I do. I would say it's both. All right. So especially in the States, when we have 50 different governments, 51.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yes.
So Uber is functioning in California, but because of some regulations, they're not functioning in North Carolina. But they're going to use the data that they've gleaned in California and hire a North Carolina lobbyist to get the rules changed so they can operate. I think a recent example that I have in the past 5 years is Tesla. So Tesla was not allowed
the dealer model, right? The franchise dealer model, right? Yes.
It wasn't allowed to be sold outside of a dealership, and that's not how they work. And so we had to change the law in North Carolina. Tesla had a really great lobbyist who got the law changed so that they could sell and service their vehicles in North Carolina.
This is interesting to me. So I'm starting a business. Tesla's a great example. They say to themselves, we are not doing the dealer model. Not part of our business plan. We're not even going down that path. We're not even looking at it. So they, in their mind at that point, Cody, are effectively budgeting, knowing that in order to sell their vehicles in certain states, they're going to have a lobbyist, a lawyer to represent themselves to change the law. Yeah. It is as simple in black and white as that, isn't it, Cody? Because they're this is our business model. We know it's not going to work over there, so we're going to have to hire Cody Hand to help us change it, right?
I think it's anytime a business wants to invest in a new territory, there is an investment cost, and that cost could be brick and mortar. We need to build a building. It could be we need to change a law to do it. We are, as lobbyists, we are part of that investment in that expansion. And so it's not an added cost. It's often for these corporations built into their budget, either the legal side or the marketing side. It's built into the budget because it's the cost of doing business. And then they often will keep on retention of a lobbyist, usually a lawyer and a lobbyist, who can monitor the legislation, because you would be surprised how many times industry A regulation proposed for something that you never think about would have a downstream impact on our operations. And without somebody on the ground paying attention to that legislation, you could 5 years from now be told you can't do something because it violates this law that really wasn't meant to have anything to do with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting to me. So, Cody, we started a conversation almost an hour ago with AI and how it's disrupting law and the impact on law. And I want to weave it back into our conversation as we wrap it up.
Mhm.
Lobbying is as much about narrative control.
That's right.
It's about communicating a seed. It's about saying something on Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, for a purpose of something you actually might want to have happen on Wednesday, May 15th, 2030.
That's right.
You got to start the narrative somewhere.
That's right.
You must look as a lobbyist at these tools now at your disposal, rightly or wrongly, and say, holy smokes, can we start planting seeds for a message that we want to have come true 38, 48, 60 months down the road? Because the power to start planting those seeds today, and Corey, I know we talk in some of our other groups about personal branding and narrative and being authentic, like the ability to lobby for, I guess the point in the question I'm trying to get at is that the ability to lobby on something that you want to have happen 4, 5, or 6 years from now, to plant those seeds, has never been easier to change narrative with AI. Cody Hand.
That's right. No, I agree with that. Yeah.
Does it scare you? Does it scare you?
No, actually, it's really helpful right now for
Mhm.
me, because I use AI a lot in my message development for lobbying and in crafting that narrative. A lot of what we do is not just crafting the narrative, but scheduling the narrative over the next 2 years. And
Of
how do I
course.
make sure that my message resonates but continues to evolve, and the platforms continue to evolve to keep up? We use AI for that all the time. At the same time, I think it's giving us a real opportunity to influence legislation around AI in a way that it continues to be useful for humans, but doesn't replace humans. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
100%. Yes, yes.
Yeah. I looked specifically, Keith, at the screenwriters strike last year.
Mm.
You know, part of the issue there was the screenwriters didn't want to be replaced with AI. And as I look in the industries of songwriting and performance,
Yes.
there's tremendous opportunity to make sure that AI is useful, but it is not replacing us, or worse, pretending to be us. And I think it's one thing to buy knowing it's AI. It's another thing to pay attention to Keith and then find out that's not actually Keith, that's AI.
So you are correct. And that's not far off.
No.
Us as humans asking those questions,
Yeah.
whether we're talking to real Cody or synthetic Cody, or when I think about speaking about myself, like every single day I do 2 hours of live video, like the ability for somebody to create a synthetic Keith in the future is not really far off. So it's because there's so much video
Yeah.
footage. These, like in many ways, the future of lobbying could be concerning because of the amount of information, propaganda, ability to change points of views with all of this mass amounts of information, and propaganda is what I'll call it, Cody.
And making sure it's right. Because
That's what I mean. Yes.
a lot of what I fight right now.
Well, and right to who? Your truth is different than my truth. We all have our own truths, right?
Right.
For instance, we were introduced to alternative facts a few years ago, right? And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't dismiss that point of view, because
No, I agree.
we live in a world where no, there are two sides to the coin. Let's talk about the heads. Let's talk about the tails. They're both. There's a fact on both of them. Just because you say that the tail is right, says who? There's also a head there too.
Yeah. I would say what we need to make sure we do is make sure that the head side and the tail side are actual, that they actually happen,
Yes.
as opposed to an AI generated didn't actually ever happen.
That's the next question we're asking, Cody, in the future is not so much, is it real? It's asking, is it fake, or whose truth is it? Like, where did the truth come from? This is a great way to start wrapping up here, Cody. But society for so many years has asked, oh yeah, so what lobby group got that thing changed? Oh yeah, so lobbying has influenced this rule, or we've all known that lobbying has a major impact on society and rules and so forth. AI is only going to, I think, perpetuate that question even further.
Yep.
Cody Hand, this is awesome, man. The Collaborative, you have a wonderful speaking platform now called The Collaborative. Talk a little bit about that, Cody, before we say goodbye.
Yeah, the Speakers Collaborative is a program that I've launched. It actually rolls out May 21st. We have a live stream on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. This next week, we have 6 speakers sharing some really great stories. The idea is for people who want to be public speakers, who have a story they want to tell, we give them a stage. So I built a stage and I allow everybody to get on it. They get all of the content they need to launch their speaking career, or if they're authors, to launch their book or their stand-up comedy. But yeah, we are going live. We're going around the States. I'm probably going to come to Canada soon, Keith.
Awesome.
And yeah, just look for us. YouTube, it is The Speakers Collaborative. And our website is thespeakerscollaborative.com.
Speakerscollaborative.com. Cody Hand, I want to fanboy out on you for a second because I like to do it with my guests. I have Nation. I have had the privilege to get to know Cody over the last few months, just on LinkedIn and through the communities and just chatting along the way here. And I've known and I've learned from Cody. Cody was not the first person to rush to speak publicly, was not the first person to get on stage and speak, was not the first person to go and speak in front of the camera, in front of the video. And I know, Cody, you've been working at this. You've been like, I'm getting better at this whole thing. And dude, I got to tell you, man, you're rocking it. I see all the content you're putting out on the socials. You're rocking it there. You're rocking it here. And I want to publicly call you out and just congratulate you in a real positive way. Cause sometimes I just think affirmation and those kind words are important to hear because we're going through it. And dude, you're rocking it, man. Like, you're showing up. I love the content you're putting out. I can see the needle moving with the Speakers Collaborative. I had you on the show a few weeks ago. We talked to the morning show. And I love when I see people come to the show or come across my feed that when you see them put their mind to something, like on the first day, Tony Elmore. Tony's like, yeah, I'm doing this. And you're like, you watch. Boom, there he goes. And dude, the same thing with you. You made this statement a few weeks ago or a couple months ago about the Speakers Collaborative and the things that you're doing. And now it's happening. And I love hearing that because it's progress. And I just think as human beings, it's just something we need to do. We need to spend more time celebrating. And I love celebrating others. So dude, I want to celebrate you and just congratulate you for your success.
Man, thanks. I really appreciate that.
It's been, and you're looking at the light. I know we joke offline about looking at the light. When you're looking at the light, Cody, you're looking into my soul, man. You're looking into my soul. When we come back, can we continue the conversation on lobbying? And it would be fun, actually. I'm looking for regular guests to jump onto topics that can move the needle of conversation across the socials. There might be something in the current events like this week, next week, that pop up. You're like, hey, Keith, yeah, let's have a conversation on this. Let's put it up on LinkedIn. Let's you and I have a banter on it. Let's put it out there. Let's chop it up. And let's get people talking about it. Because I think that I'm going to suspect you, like me, you probably wear a red shirt, blue underwear. You like to look at all points of view and ask many questions and be very curious is what I'm suspecting.
I love it. Yep. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Cody Hand, thanks for joining me. I'm going to put you back in the green room for a quick second. I'm going to say goodbye to Nation and I'm going to come back and walk you out. Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Hang tight. All right, Cody Hand, that was awesome. I know I fanboy, and today I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. I suspect you caught the enthusiasm. I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. Lobbying moves the needle. It's true. We know it, but we heard it here confirmed with Cody. Lobbying moves the needle. And what's also moving the needle is ChatGPT and Gemini and all these AI tools. The content we're creating today, I can guarantee you, is going to move the needle tomorrow and into the future. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Me and Cody, we're going to bring him back. Cody's awesome. He looks into the light. I like guys looking into the light. It's a true story. He's looking into my soul. We're going to bring Cody back. We're going to talk more current event topics and have good conversations along the way. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Tomorrow mornings in the lab, we're talking Krasky creator rankings. We're going to celebrate more humans. And Ty Hoskin's going to join me. He's not a favorite best-selling author. He's a worst-selling author, apparently. All jokes aside, we're going to see Ty tomorrow. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go walk Cody out of the lab and see you guys later.